There's a black cloud rising over the Russian Republic of Tatarstan. That can only mean one thing. The region's factory of terror is burning again. Ukraine just struck a massive blow against Russia by smashing the hub that makes one of Russia's most valuable weapons, Shahed drones. It's those drones that are now burning after a terrific long-range strike by Ukraine that landed a staggering 800+ miles beyond the border. On August 9, several outlets reported on a long-range strike Ukraine conducted against a drone facility in Tatarstan. Euromaidan was among the first, and it provided the basics. It says that Ukraine's Secret Service, or SBU, has already confirmed that strike, and that a Ukrainian drone has hit a storage unit that contained both ready-to-use Shahed drones and drone components that Russia has apparently bought from its overseas sources. Ukraine chose its target carefully. Tatarstan is home to the Alabuga Special Economic Zone, which is near the city of Alabuga and is home to many facilities that produce drones and electronics for Russia's military. The entire zone is a collective factory of terror, and it's one on which Russian President Vladimir Putin relies to keep the long-range drones upon which Russia now relies so heavily flowing. A handful of extra details come from United 24 media. It says that the specific storage unit that Ukraine just struck is located in a small settlement named Yul. It was also carried out by SBU's Special Operations Center A, which is known as the Alpha Group. Russia fears the Alpha Group, and rightfully so. It played a key role in Ukraine's 2022 Kharkiv counter-offensive, recapturing several settlements that Russia had occupied. It's now engaged in long-range drone strikes, in addition to being part of the SBU's work to capture Russian spies, sympathizers, and infiltrators who might cause damage inside Ukraine. But back to Tatarstan. This isn't the first time that Ukraine has targeted this republic. As the Kyiv Independent says in its report on the strike, Ukraine has hit it several times since Russia launched its invasion. For instance, April 2, 2024 saw Ukraine launch what was then its deepest strike into Russian territory, with an attack on the Tatarstan region that injured 12 and targeted both a drone production facility and an oil refinery. More strikes have followed, with August 8 being the latest in what is clearly a concerted campaign by Ukraine to wipe the Alabuga Special Economic Zone off the map. The SBU was more than happy to let Russia know what it pulled off. In a Telegram post announcing the strike, the SBU said, "This morning, long-range drones of the SBU Special Operations Center A hit a logistics hub where ready-to-use Shaheds are stored, as well as foreign components for them. This warehouse is located in the settlement of Yul, Republic of Tatarstan." It also gave a reason for conducting the strike, adding, "The security service continues its consistent work on the demilitarization of Russian military facilities deep behind enemy lines. The Shahed storage warehouses, with which the enemy terrorizes Ukraine every night, are one of the legitimate military targets. Each such successful operation reduces the enemy's ability to wage a war of aggression against Ukraine." That key point will return later in the video. For now, Russia is left trying to do what it always does, pretend that nothing happened. The Kyiv Independent says that there is no official statement from the Russian Ministry of Defense at the time of creating this video. There likely won't be a statement incoming. Why? Russia's modus operandi whenever Ukraine pulls off a successful strike is to deny, deflect, and outright lie about what happened. Russia will tell the world that its amazing air defenses shot down every drone that came its way. If footage emerges of the aftermath of Ukraine's drone strikes, Russia will claim that it wasn't the drone that did the damage, it was debris. Russia's air defenses were so powerful that they shot Ukraine's drones down so hard that they crash-landed and caused fires. Russia can't spout any of this nonsense this time around. There's too much footage that proves exactly what happened. Two videos show Ukraine's drones doing precisely what they were designed to do. The first starts with the camera person shooting footage of a beautiful clear sky in Tatarstan. Those with sharp ears will be able to hear the telltale whine of an incoming drone immediately, cluing us into the fact that our amateur videographer is scanning the skies for what they know is incoming. Then it appears. Looking like little more than a blip in the sky at first, Ukraine's drone is on its way to the Russian storage facility. The video zooms in. The drone is seen in all of its glory, and as a panicked Russian voice screams something into the background, the drone descends and scores a direct hit on its target. There are no air defenses in sight. Russian anti-air guns aren't rattling through rounds, as it looks like Ukraine's drone had a clear path to its target. And as if to rub salt into the wounds, there's a second much shorter video showing the impact from a different angle. This video simply shows the drone in the sky before it descends and explodes into a massive fireball as it hits a building. Russia can't deny this. So Russia is keeping quiet because there's no chance that its defense ministry will admit to the world what the evidence clearly shows. Ukraine just blew up a drone storage facility in Tatarstan. Eagle-eyed viewers of these videos may also appreciate the close-ups of Ukraine's drones because they hint at which of the country's long-range weapons it used in the strike. Euromaidan Press provides the answer for those who don't know their Ukrainian drones offhand. It was a Liutyi drone that did the damage. And that's one of the most terrifying drones in Ukraine's arsenal. On August 4, a mere 5 days before Ukraine hit the Tatarstan drone storage facility, Forbes published a profile on the Liutyi drone, where it called the powerful unmanned aerial vehicle Ukraine's response to Russia's Shaheds. In truth, Ukraine's drone is probably much better. Development started on the Liutyi back in 2022, when Ukraine was deep into its initial defense against Russia's invasion. At the time, the idea of using it to hit targets inside Russia itself may have been a pipe dream, especially given how attacking Russian territory was one of the red flags Putin claimed would cause him to elevate the war. Still, Ukraine kept working. By 2023, the drone's developers, the Ukrainian state defense conglomerate Antonov ASTC, had finished their work, allowing Ukraine to field operational Liutyi drones. By 2024, those drones were starting to fly into Russia so they could take out key infrastructural targets. If ever there was a drone that is perfect for that job, it's the Liutyi. The initial versions of the drone were already impressive enough. They could fly for about 620 miles while carrying a 110-pound explosive. That was enough to get it into Russian territory, but it could fly far enough to take out Russia's drone production facilities in Tatarstan. So, work continued. Consistent upgrades to the original Liutyi have given it a range of 1,242 miles while carrying a 165-pound explosive. The drone now flies farther and hits harder than it ever has before, and it was this upgraded version of the Liutyi that appears to have just devastated Russia's drone storage facility in Tatarstan. Perhaps even more impressively, Antonov anticipated practically every problem that might have been able to stop Ukraine from using the drone for deep strikes. Take electronic warfare or EW systems for instance. Russia has come up with EW techniques that allow it to jam Ukrainian drones by targeting their navigation and communication signals. For a drone like the Liutyi, which heads deep into Russian territory, those EW systems would have been enough to stop Ukraine's attacks in their tracks miles away from their intended targets. So the Liutyi isn't piloted remotely. That means no communication signals are being transmitted from operator to drone. Instead, the Liutyi has a combined GPS and inertial navigation system, much like a modern missile, that guides it during the initial portion of its flight. As the drone gets closer to its target, those navigation systems give way to an artificial intelligence-powered machine vision system. Resistant to many forms of EW, that system allows the Liutyi to map out complicated flight paths in real time. The paths it determines also allow it to evade radar detection and keep away from the short-range air defense systems Russia installs to stop Ukraine's drones in their tracks. Think back to the videos discussed earlier. Mentioned previously was that there were no sounds of Russian air defense systems rattling off rounds in the direction of Ukraine's drone. Now it's clear why. The Liutyi's artificial intelligence had helped it to determine a route that took advantage of the blind spots at the Tatarstan plant. Plenty of those blind spots exist. Russia has lost 1,204 of its anti-aircraft warfare systems, according to Ukraine's Ministry of Finance. What Russia has left is being stretched as best as it can manage, but it's impossible to cover every potential aerial corridor in its most valuable facilities. In an ideal world, the Tatarstan factories would have air defense systems all over. The reality for Putin is that Russia is so huge that it isn't possible to cover all of it. And it's even less possible when so many of these systems are being used to defend the Ukrainian territory that Russia occupies. Opportunities have been arising left, right and centre for Ukraine to use its Liutyi drones. And Ukraine has been taking them. The August 9 strike in Tatarstan is far from the first time this drone has sent shockwaves through Russia. Of course, Russia never admits to Ukraine successfully hitting targets inside its territory with its long-range drones. But Forbes points out to many examples where it's likely that a Liutyi was used. The earliest came in January 2024, when Ukraine hit an oil depot in St. Petersburg. Ukraine's drone travelled about 560 miles to make that strike, which means the Liutyi almost had to be the weapon of choice. Many more strikes have followed. The Mozdok air base was hit by a Liutyi in June 2024. In 2025, Ukraine has been using its upgraded version of the drone to hit oil and gas pipelines throughout Russia. Ukraine's answer to the Shahed has proven so effective that Military reports that the drone is now used in 80% of the strikes that Ukraine is committing against Russia's oil refineries. And now it's taking out drone storage facilities too. Better yet, there's the cost. A single Liutyi cost around $200,000 to build. Though estimates vary, the Center for Strategic and International Studies says that it now costs Russia about $35,000 to produce a single Shahed. The Russian drone is likely much cheaper because it doesn't include the innovative artificial intelligence systems seen in the Liutyi. Still, at that price point, Ukraine's drone would only need to have destroyed 6 Russian Shaheds to deliver a return on investment. That's without even accounting for the massive hole in the roof of a decimated storage facility that now needs repairs, regardless of how many Shaheds Ukraine's strike took out. That's the only thing that's not really known about what Ukraine pulled off. How many of Russia's Shaheds now lie in pieces thanks to a single Liutyi? Russia won't ever reveal the answer, but if Ukraine's drone took out the entire storage facility, the number must be in the dozens. It just goes to show how superior design and clever target selection showcase the massive difference in Ukraine's approach to using long-range drones versus Russia's approach. And that leads nicely to the wider ramifications of Ukraine's Tatarstan strike. First, back to the SBU's reasoning for conducting the strike. As the SBU said, Ukraine is looking to demilitarize Russia by striking as many targets deep in the country as it possibly can. The Alabuga Special Economic Zone is one of the main ways that Russia is ensuring it has enough drones to conduct ever more intense long-range strikes against Ukraine's cities. As CNN noted on August 8, Alabuga's factories have been pumping out drones at an insane rate to keep up with Putin's demands. It's gotten to the point that about 90% of all of Russia's Shahed drone production happens in its own territory, with Alabuga being key to it all. And the site is expanding. Satellite images from July shows that Russia is building new production facilities along with dorms for its workers. Of course, all of the drones being pumped out by those facilities need to be stored before they're shipped out to whatever locations Russia needs to launch them from. That's the opening that Ukraine took advantage of on August 9. Ukraine may have hit some manufacturing facilities in Tatarstan. It's not known for sure, but it definitely hit a storage unit, and that's enough to put a hitch in Russia's supply chain. Now, there's an interesting side note to the growth of the Alabuga Special Economic Zone. As Forbes reported on August 10, Iran played a huge role in Russia getting its hand on Shahed drones. In early 2023, a $1.75 billion deal saw Iran permit Russia to build Shaheds on Russian territory. Before that, Iran was able to profit off a deal that saw it send 6,000 Shaheds to Russia at a per unit cost of $193,000. That amounted to another $1.158 billion pouring into Iranian coffers before the $1.75 billion deal. But now Forbes claims Iran might be starting to feel some seller's remorse. Russia simply doesn't need Iran anymore, as evidenced by the fact that Russia is building up to 90% of its Shahed itself. Iran likely didn't anticipate that. It probably thought it would be able to make several $billion more off the Ukraine war thanks to Russia's focus on building more mechanized units for the ground invasion. Sure, Russia will be building its own Shaheds, but it would still need Iran to fill the gaps. When Putin started leaning more heavily into using drones, Iran would have been rubbing its collective hands in glee at all of the money that was about to come rolling in. Money that it won't be getting thanks to its short-sighted decision to allow Russia to build its own Shaheds. Of course, a single strike against Tatarstan isn't going to send Russia running back to Iran to buy more drones. Ukraine has to do a lot more damage, but if it ever does happen, Russia might find itself paying through the nose for drones that Iran is very unhappy about not being able to sell thanks to Russia transferring almost all of its Shahed production onto its own territory. And speaking of Russian drone production, it's ramped up a lot. And thanks to that increase, Ukraine is dealing with Russia sending a lot more Shaheds flying into its territory, leading to another reason why the Tatarstan strike matters. Every Shahed destroyed is a drone that can't be sent into a Ukrainian city. That's vital at a time when Russia's long-range drone strikes are more intense than they've been at any other time during the Ukraine war. Mentioned earlier was that Ukraine carefully chooses military targets to hit with its Liutyi drones. Russia doesn't do that with its Shaheds. It simply sends hundreds of the drones at a time to strike Ukraine's cities and wreak havoc among the country's civilians. Al Jazeera has the numbers. On August 3rd, it reported that the AFP news agency believes that Russia launched 6,297 drones, which was a 16% increase over the already record-breaking numbers of the previous month. Of those 6,297 drones, 6,129 were Shaheds of the type that Ukraine just took out in Tatarstan. This amounts to about 197 Shahed drones entering Ukrainian territory per day last month. For some extra context, Russia launched 423 drones at Ukraine in July 2024. In just 1 year, Russia has increased production to the point where it's now using 14 times more drones per month than it was in 2024. And it's only going to get worse if Russia can hit Putin's drone production targets. According to Newsweek, the Institute for the Study of War says that Russia is trying to get to the point where it can feasibly launch 2,000 drones against Ukraine in a single day. That would be devastating. Ukraine can extract some positives from this news, however. Part of the reason why Russia is focusing so heavily on drone production now is that it's running out of the mechanized units it's relied upon for much of Putin's invasion. As Dr. Jack Watling, who's a military expert with the Royal United Services Institute think tank, told Sky News back in May. Russian stockpiles of legacy Soviet equipment, from tanks and infantry fighting vehicles to artillery pieces, will be running out between now and mid-autumn, such that Russia's ability to replace losses will be entirely dependent on what it can produce from scratch. That bright spot may not mean much to Ukraine when thousands of Shahed drones are invading its airspace. That's why strikes like the one just seen in Tatarstan are needed. On its own, the Tatarstan strike looks like an isolated attack against a Russian drone storage facility. It isn't. Rather, it's part of a systematic effort by Ukraine to destroy Russia's drone storage and production facilities. The expanding Alabuga Special Economic Zone is one of the most important targets for Ukraine as the war moves deeper into 2025 and on to 2026. It's this zone that will enable Russia to reach the 2,000 drones per day target Putin has set. The only way to stop that from happening is to send the entire zone up in flames. Liutyi provides Ukraine with the tool that it needs to get the job done. The odds are that many more reports of drone making and storage facilities in Tatarstan getting blown up are likely to emerge in the coming months. Now, drones are the only aspect of the Russian military that's seeing its numbers rise. And even they may soon find themselves being hit with crippling shortages soon, just like Russia's missiles and tanks. Russia's war machine is drying up, and the numbers are absolutely brutal. Find out more in our video, and remember to subscribe to the Military Show for more up-to-date coverage of Ukraine's latest deep strikes on Russian territory.